All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for making it today. We have a very special guest in our presence. We have Lloyd here, coming in to talk some commercial, kind of like the introductory, part. I think that the commercial world, residential world, there's a lot of, square peg into the hole, right? It never fits right, and everybody kind of struggles with it. Commercial people, they don't like residential brokers. A lot of residential brokers don't like commercial people. It's weird, but we don't think that's right. Out of this office, we do quite a bit of commercial out of this office, and a lot of that is thanks to Tony. So we're really glad that, we've got connections with relationships like this with Lloyd, that he will come and spend his own time. And that is probably the most precious commodity we all have, right, is our time. So I'm going to give this over to Lloyd, and I just thank you so much, man, for coming in and sharing your experience with us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me. I was a broker for a long time, for 19 years, and I love the community of brokers, and so I miss it. It's an honor to be back in the building and speaking with you all today, because you're all entrepreneurs. You guys took the risk to maybe leave a career before this and get into real estate and bet on yourself and what you believed and what you saw that your career could be. So again, it's an honor to be here. I've been a real estate broker. My first year was actually, my first day was 9/11/2001. That was my first day in real estate. Was shadowing my mom. She was a broker since '89. And I was in the car with her. We were going to a listing appointment, and on the way to the house, the agent, or not the agent, but the owner calls and says, "Hey, have you heard the news? Turn on the radio." And, the Twin Towers just got hit. And so I'm not a stranger to like challenge jumping into the market where there was a lot of uncertainty and nobody was doing anything but watching TV for the next couple of months. And it affected travel. It affected a lot of things that touch commercial real estate and real estate, the industry in general. So yeah, this is me. This is like 2007, 2006. I was in residential. I started in residential. My first 7 years were all doing residential off market. I was 19, so I figured out that in order to secure myself in a transaction, if I got the deal, then the buyers had to buy from me, right? And it was easier to work with formulas and numbers than to convince someone that this school district is, right for your family when you're moving here. So I found myself in like off market fix and flip, and did a lot of fix and flip sales. And then also did some financing. So my first year, I got my real estate license. I was 19. I got my mortgage originator's license, and then I also bought my first house. It was so easy back then. And I thought that was the way. I thought that was going to last forever. But, a lot of stated income, no documentation loans out there. And I was using the products too. It wasn't like, it was a situation where, it was just for people with poor credit. Subprime was like the easy way in. So with low introductory rates, it was like, the way we sold an option arm at the time was, it was like a refinance every month where you're pulling cash out. That was the script that I got. And so I spent a lot of time in residential. I loved it. And I ended up being a top producer in my brokerage, which was a residential boutique brokerage. We had about 30 agents and 30 loan officers, something like this. Worked with my parents in their brokerage. And, my mom was the first to leave her job at Boeing. And then my dad followed like 8 years later. He ended up leaving and then getting his mortgage originator's license and becoming like a mortgage broker at the time. So we had a real estate office and a home lending office. And my I got inspired by Rich Dad Poor Dad, the book. And there was really one story that kicked it off for me, and that was um, uh, Mrs. Kiyosaki wanted a new Jaguar. And so instead of going out and buying it, she went and bought the asset that made the payments for the lease for the new Jaguar. And so compounding all these benefits, and the equity in that house far exceeded what she would have paid for that Jaguar. So that really inspired me. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and I obsess about things that I'm really into. And so I just studied, and I read like a book a week for maybe 10 years, just in like over 1,000 books, over my career. And I just kept absorbing information and learning more and more about commercial real estate, sales, psychology, all these different things. It was a long journey. I started out as a college dropout. And then in 2015, I went back and I got into MIT, their commercial real estate program. And so I spent some time over there in residence, and I barely made it in. I had to make it in with recommendations in my career, because when they asked for transcripts, I would have had to give them some Highline Community College transcripts. And much love for Highline, but that's not necessarily the typical path to get into MIT. So spent some time there, about a whole summer, learned a lot of great things, met a lot of great people, and it really expanded my mind and thinking about not just one deal or one property, but how urban design occurs and how our city planners plan zoning. And then I started to see how downtowns took shape, and then the ancillary areas around the downtowns, and then other markets like built and their economies. I started studying those things. It's very interesting. Real estate is a very broad category of things. There's so many different neighborhoods, locations, property types, styles of homes, styles of tenancy, and different types of buildings. And we'll go over all those. I'll kind of just take you down my journey first through real estate and how I ended up in commercial real estate from residential. And then I'll go over some of the basics, how we get paid, what's a good system. There's a lot of things that people have asked me over the years that are just common questions. And it just shows the big gap between like commercial and residential. But the same license that can sell a house in East Hill can sell the Columbia Tower. There's no difference. A lot of people ask me, do you need a different type of license? Do you need education? Do you need these types of things? But you really don't. If somebody trusts you and they're willing to sign a listing agreement, you could list Columbia Tower tomorrow. So we'll go over some of those common questions, and then we'll open it up for you guys to ask questions, so you can get some of your thoughts out there, and hopefully we can settle them today. Some of your concerns about commercial real estate, because it looks big. And I was a commercial broker in residential brokerages my whole career. So I spent 11 years at Keller Williams, which is residential. They had a KW commercial division, but because they're so big, they had like multiple branches. They had luxury, they're international, but in certain markets, they're number 2, number 1. But in this market, we were like all the way at the bottom of the list. So I understand the hesitancy when you call a commercial broker and you throw out a name like John L. Scott, where everybody thinks, oh, they sell beautiful homes all over. But they don't have that same respect as it would be like a CBRE calling a Kidder Matthews broker. In residential real estate, there's tens of thousands of brokers. And when you look at the Puget Sound Business Journal and the top brokerages in commercial real estate, like the top one is less than 100, I think. So you add it all up, it's like 500 commercial brokers in the whole state doing the deals that are, that have the commercial brand and identify themselves as commercial brokers. They do a survey and they survey the different brokerages out there. They may not even call John F. Scott just because they didn't have the respect for it, or it was just low on the list. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in this particular office that have touched a commercial real estate deal, a business opportunity sale, done a lease. Maybe you owned a retail store before and you leased some space. You have experience in commercial real estate. And I also want to show you guys that there's some experience that you have in your past that's absolutely applicable to commercial real estate today and these various different property types that we deal with. So in my residential career, spent some time at regional brokerages and ended up
Right, that's doing it for this one. Okay, try it now. It might do it.
Okay. So in 2007, 2006, I sold the whole top of Cougar Mountain to Sean Alexander during his MVP year. And then that same year, we listed, or I wouldn't say listed, we were like one of the sales representatives for Trump Tower Las Vegas. And so we did this speech, 3,500 people at the Sands Convention Center, and I spoke in front of these people. It was like a huge, my biggest speaking engagement ever. And we sold 200 units in 48 hours, full doc, owner occupied, second home, loans, and all these people were putting like 20% down, 10% down. A lot of folks were from Silicon Valley. I was with a West Coast firm at this time. It was a regional firm, and we had a few thousand agents. And that was the peak of that period, that time, that season in real estate. And our lender for the Trump Tower ended up pulling out. It's countrywide, and they ended up getting purchased and moved around. And so I had to take 200 loans. This is me, from bank to bank to bank to hedge fund to private equity. And everyone loved it at first, but then their credit officers or credit committee was like, we can't do these, we can't do these. And so I learned a lot in that process because, the salespeople were like, yeah, this is awesome, this is amazing. And they were treating me very well. But then there was this next level of approval that was there. And I wanted to know who those people were because I wanted to get inside why were they thinking about this like this. And I had never been through a recession at that time. When I was younger, but I wasn't able to work at that time. But like I hadn't been through a recession or seen property values decline or anything like that. And when the market kind of hit us in the face, there was a lot of learning and education going on. And at the time I had like 5 homes, 5 properties. I was a young kid too. I was like 25 years old. My run rate every month was probably like $18,000, like spending just like cars. I had $100,000 car. I had all this stuff. I thought, things were just going to continue and income was going to be endless. And so I had all these problems with my own portfolio, and I was able to work everything out with the lenders. And I learned, negotiating with banks. I saved all my assets, and then I was mid-flip on everything. However, renting, I could have just turned them into rentals, which I did. And I started collecting rent on all the properties and then cash flowed. And that actually took me through that recession because I was also reinventing myself because I learned more and more about commercial real estate and investment property and income property that I really dove into it, went down that rabbit hole, and I began to love it. So I made that transition with all this weight on me at the time. And, reaching the peak in residential, it just kind of stopped. Like now, somebody does this, it's all over Instagram and Facebook and everything. And then it's in your email signature. I sold this person the house. And, I realized that this stuff kind of it's meaningless after it's done. It's meaningful for your career. It gives you the confidence to go out there and sell, but the awards and accolades, they get dusty. My best dressed of 2000 17, that award, I don't even know where it is, right? That said, I saw this bigger opportunity and then I took the leap into commercial real estate. I had the weight on my shoulders of my own portfolio. I had income that disappeared. I was millionaire on paper and all that evaporated. Now I'm just trying to hold on to the real estate. And yeah, it was a tough time, but tough times make tough people, they say.
Nice. See if it works now. Try it. Gotcha.
So spent some time in leadership with Realtor, Young Professionals Network. That was a lot of fun. But it helped me build reputation and a network and community, which is part of development, building that reputation and community and network of people that can see what you see in the future that doesn't exist right now. And they're willing to walk with you to make it real because there's an incentive in it for everyone. And one of the things that I realized was the bigger the economic value of the thing that you're pitching or presenting, the more people can fit inside of it. So if you're dreaming house, family, 2 families, 3 families, you know? But if you're dreaming a building like this, you've got companies in here that feed families, and you have a restaurant, and you have parking, and you have scenery and beauty and all these things. It's just a little bit different. But the larger the economic opportunity for everyone, the more people you can fit in it. And you have to bring partnerships and people along, and I'll explain that. There's like very few deals that I've ever done where someone else didn't get paid as a broker. I partnered with a lot of different brokers, and being a commercial broker in a residential office, I was the one swimming this way while everyone was swimming that way. So I got all the questions, and I became the director of commercial for the region. And so everybody would call me asking for, like, what is this? And the way they appraised opportunities was they didn't have the information. It's just like trying to appraise an office building and not understanding office, but you can certainly value a condo or a home or some land or, easy. So they were like, it's a lease. I don't know. They're a tech company. Just help them out. I sold them a house over here in Medina, blah, blah, blah. But they have this other thing, and just, or they wanted coaching and help. They wanted to do it themselves. And then I came alongside them and basically did the deal. Sometimes people took the help and actually grew their business from it, but sometimes they just, it didn't resonate with them, and they just needed some hand holding, and that was fine too. But every deal, majority of the deals I did took a team of people, and when you come to the table with a team of people, you have multiple expertise, and then you have more ability to reach. So depending on what your strength is, having the team can fill in those holes and then also help with the workload, because there's effort. It takes some effort in selling commercial real estate. There's more there's more communication involved with the ability of the property, the ability and potential of development, zoning, and how's it currently operating. So did some events and met some people and was really involved in residential. And like I said, that was one of the keys, is like, you don't have to be at a CBRE. You can be right here at this amazing brokerage with all these great resources and build a very substantial commercial real estate business for yourself. You guys have all the tools. You got Tony, who can answer all your questions and is very capable, like myself. And so get that out of your head that you have to have that brand attached to it. There's a lot of commercial brokerages that you've never even heard, that even people in commercial have never heard of, because they're entrepreneurs that just, they don't need all the stuff. And they set up their own little 3-person shop, and they sell retail centers in Linwood, and they just go crazy, and they own that market. And, but the brand name you've never heard of, and there's only one office and 3 people work there, right? So you can do it from right here, absolutely. This is the first building that I purchased. That's my partner, Sam. We were so pumped. This is a 25 unit, purchased it in 2020. And, nobody saw what we saw. I hadn't bought a property in 12 years at this time, you know, when I got hit by the market in 2007, 8, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go after commissions. I'm going to focus on market of the moment, what's happening right now, be ahead of the game, figure out strategies, give investors strategies, be well connected, hook them up with architects and engineers and just be a huge resource and a huge connector for investors so they can do deals. So I hadn't purchased anything in 12 years, but Sam brought this to the table, and he had it, he was negotiating the deal, and he was gonna buy a pizza shop before this. Long story short, he brings this to the table. We're at Mercury Coffee in Bellevue, and it's on the market. And I take one look at it, and I see the brochure, and I'm like, okay, let me teach this guy some things about off market and, you know, where to find the best deals. 30 seconds, I said, we're either getting a $500,000 assignment fee or we're doing this ourselves. So we were buying it. And I hadn't made a purchase again in 12 years. It took a lot of faith. But what I saw, it was a roadside motel. And that's what everyone saw. It's in the Wallingford neighborhood, 45th and Green Lake Way, 25 units. And I saw that these were larger rooms. They're about average of 420 square feet. This is an apartment. This doesn't even look like a hotel. You know, this is an apartment. Everyone underwrote it as an apartment. They were marketing it as an apartment. We were negotiating, as a hotel. And we were negotiating as a hotel, but what we saw was an apartment. So we get this for $87K a door in a market that was $358 a door. Big arbitrage, huge arbitrage, but nobody saw that. And what I realized is 2 people can look at the same deal and see different things. And what I saw created a big economic opportunity that's going from 87 to 3. That's like a 3.5x. So me seeing that and no one else seeing it, we ended up buying it, and we did exactly that. We were right. It felt great. It felt really great. We still own it today, and now we're finally selling it 5 years later at like 3x the purchase price.
And there's no issues with the fact that it was an apartment, or sorry, a hotel, and then you changed it to an apartment with like zoning or anything like that?
Yeah, no.
You can do that?
You can do that.
Okay.
But you have to look at zoning, and the way I understand
Right.
how real estate works is hotel, Airbnb, they don't want hospitality and commercial activities invading residential neighborhoods.
Mhm.
But housing, there's a big need for housing. And so the zoning for this is the same as an apartment. And so next door is a condo, and then next to that is an apartment, across the street is an apartment, everything was an apartment, right? So it had that zoning, NC 55M.
Okay.
No pedestrian, no P for pedestrian oriented or anything like that, so we didn't have to have retail. And we were just able to convert it into an apartment building. You know, now you do have to bring things up to code, if you, you know, depending on like, what the current condition is, some things can get grandfathered in. It was during a time where COVID was crazy, and they kind of like let everything and anything happened if we could solve some problems and create housing.
Yeah.
And we were able to do that. And we were able to do it again and again and again.
Do you think if it hadn't been in COVID, you would have run into issues or just
It
it
would've
might have
cost
taken
more.
longer?
It would have cost more potentially, taken more time.
Yeah,
Like we got fast tracked.
got it.
So, but that was our original goal anyway. It just so happened that the day we closed was National Emergency Day. So again, like this new life starting.
Right, right.
It's National Emergency Day and everybody's indoors, so we had to stall our plans and run a hotel. And like the people who were occupying this place, there's a whole lifestyle of people paying week to week or day by day. You'd be surprised. Yeah, and like that Monday, there was this guy, he just left after living there for like 10 years. And come to find out, Sam runs down the street chasing him because our manager at the time was like, hey, unit 20 left and he's been here for 10 years, but he can't pay anymore. And he runs down the street. Come to find out the guy was selling nickel papers every single day for 10 years just to pay the nightly and stay here. But there's a whole population of people that live this lifestyle that aren't quite necessarily like that, but maybe they have document issues. Maybe they get paid cash. They're contractors. There's all kinds of different reasons why people have to find this type of housing. And so we saw that everything, it's all the same stuff. It's a box, it's a box with a bathroom and a kitchen and all the essential services that you need. And because we were a hospitality company now, in our minds, we had access to all these essentials like toilet paper and shampoo, towels, housekeeping, sheets, pillows. Wait, we have furniture. We're fully furnished. Now let's compete over there. It was a very different mindset. We were very much entrepreneurial at the time because we saw the world changing. We saw that, immediately as soon as lockdown hit, I was like, oh man, what's going to happen to office? Like office is going to have a problem. And it did, and it continues to kind of struggle. It's gotten better, but it's still struggling. So yeah, we were able to convert this and I retired. Just like, this is like months later, I'm like, okay, we did this. It was like March 11th to July 27th. I had to let the whole, world know that I'm retired. Don't send me referrals anymore. I'm an investor now, but I had to make that clear also because as a investor in the marketplace, again, facing the same thing. They don't look at you the same if you're a broker also. And, there's this very famous architect and developer. There's this documentary on him, Life of Building. You guys should watch it. It's just great real estate design documentary. And they were looking down on him because he was an architect that ended up becoming a developer. And they were like, wait. No, architects design things, developers build things. You're an architect. But he became like the most successful developer in Shanghai. A guy who built here, local guy, not in the United States, ends up going and becoming one of the most famous designer developers of all time. So he's got more buildings in the sky down there, I think, than anybody as far as his design. It was highly sought after. His first major design was the Hyatt in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's got the capsule elevators that you can see. They're exposed. They're like gold, and they ride up, and just vast open spaces. He had a vision for creating community and everybody being able to see each other when they come out of their rooms and having these beautiful spaces indoors. He even designed some projects with the same care and love. And I can't remember what state that was in. But yeah, I retired and I let it be known because I didn't want other agents, commercial brokers, to think that I was wholesaling or putting things under contract and maybe moving them to someone else. I've never done a wholesale deal my whole career because I mean, I was a broker. So I just, took my role as a broker. But I knew the perception. That's why I wore a suit today. Like the last time I wore a suit, I was here. Usually, maybe not that dressed down. That was COVID dressed down. So we took our hotel mid-pandemic. This is April 2021, to 100% occupancy. It doesn't look like this anymore. It looks like this. And again, 25 studios. We had 400 square feet of retail. We had some space in front that we converted into like well, it wasn't even converted. It was just designated it as a food truck pad. So many cars per day drive by this thing, and we rented it out to, there was like this national COVID testing group. And so they were paying us like $800 a month for a parking space just to park on our site. Yeah, we'll find ways, like, does T-Mobile want to put an antenna on top of our, there's so many ways when you own, and we own the whole block. There's no neighbors. It's just like a triangle kind of block here. So it's really cool. Views of Lake Union, the whole downtown skyline, Space Needle, mountains. It's pretty phenomenal. And then that led us to our next acquisition, which was Belltown. This is 50 units. And one thing I can say is home runs create more home runs. Nothing, one of my dad's really good friends said, nothing sells like sales. And he was a salesman, import, export. Nothing sells like sales. So if you have a bunch of sales reported in a certain neighborhood, I mean, you're the gal, you're the guy. But this win allowed us to get this with no money down. Yeah, I put 6 figures into this deal, not much, like 100 and some change. And that was the last amount of money I put into a deal. And you'll see all the deals that I've done in a second. To acquire this, and because we acquired this, it was completely vacant. Negotiated it, got it for 4.4. Like immediately, I knew this is on Second Ave and Second and Battery. So right in the core of Belltown, and views of the Space Needle from the roof and from the street. It has like 2 alleyway, like grottos. That's what we call it. We've covered them. We've had parties there. We've done cool stuff. We have our own artwork. That we put in all of our buildings. I have an artist who's a partner, and she just got great style. She's also an interior designer, so we have her design some of our spaces as well. Partnerships.
Answer your question
Sure.
now. So you said, after that deal, you haven't put any money down. So are they looking at what that building is producing income wise? And therefore, that's how you're able to get the loan for all of your other deals?
That is a way.
Okay.
It was just simply, we were right. We were right. We were right about this. We were right about this deal. And they believed that we were gonna be right about this one.
So you're presenting, these are the numbers that this building's gonna make.
Mhm,
And they said, okay, we'll
mhm.
loan you the money.
Absolutely. They were like,
Okay,
well, we bought this with a tenant in tow. We already have the tenant.
okay.
You see what I mean?
Yep, yep.
And so that is, that's expert level. Cause a lot of people look at a building and then they speculate and then they bring it to the market and then they're hoping, but you don't know what you're gonna get. So being the networker and being the, real estate guy, I understood that if we have a tenant and they have a purpose, I could see the building if they're just telling me their dream. I could see the building. And so I saw this building, found it on the market online, and ended up making the offer, made the offer at 6 million, because it was listed at 6 at the time. And I was like, this is worth it, you know, this is a $10 million building, easy. Especially if we put a lease in. And they didn't necessarily believe in us. The seller. It was a full price offer, and they said, well, we're gonna need to see proof of funds. And then I fired back. I was like, well, if I give you proof of funds, that pretty much like justifies that we're the buyer and secures your deal. And so who else is out there looking for a vacant building? I see their buildings now and they're vacant. There was only 8 occupied units in Weston, downtown Seattle at the time, like 8 lights on. You can see it at night. Everything's dark. There's only 8 lights on. And so I wrote this long email and I was like, well, I'll give you proof of funds by Friday, but the price is now 5 million. Send. Yeah, I was bold. And they said no, they went with someone else, but the deal came back to us. And that's another thing that I learned is, you know, you have to be able to walk away from a deal. And we walked away from every single deal we've done, maybe at least once, until it came chasing back after us. But everything we put under contract, we've closed. So yeah, you want this deal to be your first deal to be a home run. And for your clients, it's a home run, then they'll be coming back for the next one and they'll use you for the next one. And because of this opportunity, a call came in and was like, hey, we need some tenants for our 39 unit. And then another call came in and was like, hey, we want you to manage one of our buildings. And so like within 90 days, we activated 3 buildings. That one, this Capitol Hill building, Will Heaton owns it, Heaton Daner, Jimmy Daner.
Yeah.
They own it, and then we master leased it for 3 years and then put a tenant in there and paid them above market rent, managed it, provided all the essential services, security, front desk, just all the things. And then this building, South Lake Union, the Civic Hotel, the Apple across the street. It's right in South Lake Union. It's a really nice building. We manage that one as well. And we just ended our management agreement on that. But like within 90 days, we had to become a property management company. Like we just grew like overnight. That opportunity created more opportunities. And then we bought this in Kennydale. You guys probably have driven by this a million times. It's right across the street from the Seahawks facility. Bought that 2222, which was exactly like, I want to say, oh man, 22 months and 22 days after we purchased this. Like you can run the numbers, it's insane. And we weren't even gonna close on that day. I threw it out there, and we're big on numbers. You know, I threw it out there to the broker and I've used brokers on all these deals, by the way, didn't do it myself. And yeah, it just ended up that way, which is very cool. Sign from God. Then we purchased this Magnolia property, just this thing right here. There's 6 units, 6 condos, all one level. And it was flat. Our lender happened to own this one next door. So that was another sign. I was like, okay, maybe we can do a joint venture with our lender. They'll definitely lend on this. And I saw like 11 townhomes here. Like, okay, that's the density. That's what you could do. This is in Magnolia. The government way is on the other side of this. And then on this street behind us is the street that Discovery Park is on. So it's like at the entrance of Discovery Park. Beautiful flat land, and then everything around it was developed. We got for $1 million, $1 million. Rates started to go up then and get challenging. We bought it for about $1 million, and We got owner financed 80% of it at like 4% interest. Crazy. So we didn't need any financing to come in on that, and then we refinanced. We finally have our demo permits, and so we're gonna be building not 11, but 8. And it's very well designed. No one can see inside, so inside of your rooftop deck, there's like separation, a buffer in between. I mean, you can wave at the neighbors across the street, but for the most part, it's very private. And then all of them are wide. It's not the skinny stuff. Could have built 11, but we went with 8 larger designs, 3 bedrooms, with an ADU at the base. So with its own entrance, everything has an ADU. I mean, just take a note from you guys. I mean, like, what people need and want. And it also has the ADU, which is kind of an entrepreneurial Airbnb aspiration, but then it can also live like a whole house if you wanted it to. 15 to 1,700 square feet. So we want to compete with the houses versus compete with the townhomes, but be priced like a high-end town.
Street parking?
There is tons of street parking. Like on right here and then, but everything has its own garage though.
So it
So,
does have a garage.
yeah, they all have garages.
Powder room on the main entertaining area, kitchen area?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, they're like 3 and 3 or 4 and 3. And then we acquired a piece of this.
A piece of it.
A piece of it because we had a tenant and we could manage it. So that's one of the things I want you guys to understand. I would rather partner with not just money, but impact capital. So capital that can do something else, provide a service, provide flooring at a discount, or they're a general contractor, or they're an architect, or they're, people that are in the industry that have some chops. Because money, I lost a lot of respect for just money on the surface, because people get money all kind of ways. They get it, they inherit it. They might have made money in tech or outside of real estate, but when you bring that money to real estate, it doesn't necessarily have the intellect to go execute a deal or to develop something. And so, I would much rather find a partner who had a business or some other ability. Could be a CPA, maybe they have financial accounting skills, but all those things fill in the needs, and we could pay them. We pay each other, we pay ourselves properly and appropriately, but maybe that could be deferred. Maybe there's ways to work with some of those payments, or maybe the margins can be deferred, something like that. So because you're a real estate broker, what you want to do, you're finding your superpower in real estate. You're looking for it. You're like, what am I going to be good at in this? It's a big wide world at first. And my first thing was like, I'm gonna sell luxury homes in Medina. That was like, you make 3%, let's make the 3% on a bigger amount, right? So I was just thinking it was gonna be luxury real estate. I'm a maximizer like that. So if I was selling airplanes, I'd be selling big private jets, So you have this experience as a broker. And if you find your own deal, the most leverage and the most power is the person who signed the contract. That's it. Because until the contract expires, you have that deal. You just have to put it together within the timeline, but you have that deal. And so I realized when I was a broker that I gave them all the contacts, I found them the deal, and the only difference is you had the money and you signed the contract. Right? So I found out the power was in the pen. So I said, my name needs to be signing on here and not the listing agreement. So that's, and for me, the moments got smaller and smaller. And so I stopped preparing for things. I'd start winging. And I did excellent, but like, I remember waking up at 6 a.m., at 5 a.m. and like, man, today's a big day. Those days like stopped occurring. You know, it's like, oh, you got a listing appointment today at such and such for a $10 million deal. It's like, you know, it didn't hit the same. But you know, I got that fire back when I moved into ownership. It really fired me up and got me up in the morning. But there's so much time in between. So much time in between. Like from this deal to this deal, that's months. That's so many months. You're used to getting commission check every month, like multiple, you know, working on a pipeline and having this activity going on that, and I'm like, you know, I want to envision what we can do and then let everybody do their best work. That's me. I want to do my best work up front and then pick the best people and then let them fly with the deal. And then manage at the high level from there. But don't necessarily want to be in the weeds. I've cleaned toilets in that first building. You know, you can imagine how bad those toilets could be. When we first took it over, there was 10 units down, there was needles, there was stuff. There was stuff, you know, in every hotel, there is some element, I don't want to say every hotel, but in the hotel hospitality industry, there's some element of drugs, prostitution, you know, gambling, like these kinds of things just exist. And yeah, that element comes around. And so we had to clean everything up. There was a lot we were working with. And that's how we got the deal that we got, because 10 units were down. There were non-revenue units. So it couldn't earn. Because it couldn't earn, the value went down, because these commercial properties are based on their income. And the owners were just tired. They'd owned it for like 20 plus years. And we were able to come in and have the new energy and turn it around. You'll be surprised how many people are out there that are very capable, that have long track records, that just don't have the energy anymore to go through another one of these. You know, and they're just like, the vision is kind of lacking for, okay, well, how are people going to use this space now? And their capital is old on it. So now every improvement requires capital out of their pocket or a big refinance, but why am I going to refinance if I don't have the vision yet? And people get swirled and caught up in that. And that's one of the reasons why some of these properties change hands. And you would wonder why, how come they didn't just put a new roof on it and do this and do that? They could have sold it for so much more. Well, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of situations out there that are across the spectrum. So yeah, we had a tenant and we were able to bring value to the table, but not money to the table. This one, people wanted to jump in for, you know, jump on the ride with this because they saw it was a winner. You know, as far as like, oh, you can build these townhomes here. We only got it for $1 million and it's right here and it's easy, it's flat. Great. And we had all the financing contacts already lined up, everything lined up. So we signed the contract and we didn't have to bring in that 200,000. A partner brought in the 200,000 and we joint ventured the deal. And that partner is a developer. So they are working on all of the permits and, you know, with some of our contacts and people. So like they just moved forward with it and they took our notes and we designed I was like, everything has to have an ADU and rooftop decks. And then I just gave them a loose picture and then they did it perfectly. But that's I'll put that feather in the cap of Citizen Architects because they're really good. And then come to find out, this is the next building we bought. But Citizen designed this building. We didn't know it until like we were already under contract, which was like, it's a good sign. We got some cohesiveness here, got a style. So this is in Capitol Hills. That's the light rail station right there. So it's like, boom, so close. No parking. It's the only building we have with no parking. Oh, well, not only, but it's one of the ones with no parking that it warranted. You know, it's fine, right? But I think parking is super essential because I don't know anybody who doesn't have a car that I can think of right now. I don't know anybody, right? So this is for a time. It's for a time, but it's not, it doesn't have the longevity of, you know, like a garden style apartment in camp. Where there's 3-story walk up and there's storage and covered parking and, you know, you're gonna get people who nest there for a long time. This is more transitional. We bought, it was fully built, brand new, unoccupied. The owner could not get it filled and they couldn't sell it vacant. Just people, the market was weird. This is 5 months ago. So I mean, imagine interest rates and like where the world was. We didn't know who was gonna be president, all this stuff. So we were able to bring a tenant to the table and own a lot of the building, half of the building, just by bringing a tenant and managing it.
And what kind of tenant is that?
The tenant is a housing tenant. We go for block tenants. You know, again, thinking bigger, not just one at a time. None of our offerings, none of our units are like on apartments.com or like on Craigslist, except for one of our buildings. But we like to go for multiple tenants at once with one housing provider, which could be a nonprofit, could be the city, the county, it could be the like a corporation, corporate housing, because you know we're
Thank you.
hospitality based. So we've got like 150 beds. Well, I've got like 100 bunk beds, you know, in storage that came from a hostel. We had a hostel. That Belltown building was a hostel. We've got stuff, so we can furnish really quickly and now market a furnished offering to corporate level.
So how do you deal with parking?
Parking, there just is no parking. They have to find their own parking in this building. And a lot of people use the light rail, but again, like that's for certain lifestyles, certain demographic of people who have moved here recently and don't have a car yet. They're not settled. They, you know, but as soon as you add a dog and a significant other, then like this just doesn't really work anymore,
So Are
right?
you running like month to month? on
No,
this?
no, we have one housing tenant for this whole thing. Yeah, for 5 years. Yeah, same thing with the,
Okay, and then that company could run like a month to month. Right? They're
Yes,
bringing the people in,
yes, they
right,
could,
okay,
they could,
okay. I see.
because,
So
I mean,
is it
there's-
like a
That's how that-
corporation.
yep.
Yeah.
mhm.
That's
It
how
can, the universities, we could provide university housing.
Right.
I mean, there's just so many, there's just a layer of opportunities that people really don't pursue. Because when you hire a property manager, you know, they might have the contacts, but the person who's actually doing the sales, you gotta think, you know, they're just humans. They may not be thinking this big and they might just come up with a strategy that just worked for 2255 West Avenue, you know, and just recycling the stuff. But it takes some real thinking and soul searching while you're in the building to see the community that will be in there. And when you see it in your mind first, then the list builds of who all the people is to contact.
Have you ever like market for like traveling nurses, you know?
That's another one,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. We did that on we did that on our Wallingford deal. And then we have this house that has like, that's like 6,500 square feet and then there's 10 bedrooms in it. And the top is 1 unit and the bottom is like 6. And so those 6, we marketed to traveling nurses right by the airport. That type of deal. So I mean, but that is a good market as well. And furnishedhomefinder.com is the website for that. And if you guys have like vacant houses, I would look into that as well, because that's an opportunity for you to fill your house. There's also like not exchange students, but students abroad, and international students and international student programs that are looking for host properties to house their program. Yeah, and you
Right.
look,
Yeah.
they're looking for the partner to do that. There's recovery houses for people who have recovered from drugs and alcohol, and these are like clean and sober houses. So there's a lot of oversight and the operations are like way more expensive than you would think. Not for us, but for the community to thrive. And so they are nonprofits that have their own budgets they've raised because they have casework and follow-up and things to manage with their communities that are outside the realm of real estate. So we can manage, but we can't operate the community. Manage more on the property side, the everything from maintenance to tech to new installations and build outs, because some of these tenants we need 4 cameras, we need, an area so people can go outside and smoke. We need, some of these things. And so based on what they're telling us and we hear, we build it out for them in exchange for a long-term lease and not a 1 year, but like a 5 year.
Yeah.
So now we have housing that's like secure, for the long term. And then furnishing and all that as well. Security, what type of services they need.
Right.
So vision, mathematics, that's one of the things that I'm really like big on. Being able to see it and then quantify it, what it's going to be worth when it's serving the ideal community and what it's worth right now. And that helps you determine the buy price and what the economic value is going to be. But if you can't see the bigger vision and you're seeing what everyone else sees, well, now your mathematics are running off of a smaller box. See what I mean? This is what it looked like when we got it, just trashed out. That is not a work site, that is storage. They just put stuff in there and paint and brooms and all types of things. And there were several rooms, like all 10 of the rooms that were down looked like this or worse.
Wow.
Artwork. Some interior decorating. We put a music studio in there because we're cool kids. That was, it's part of the branding, it's part of the thing that we have passion projects in music. One of my business partners is a music and like media producer. Was a director, worked at Universal, all of that. We were childhood best friends. He came back and I was like, man, we need to build this big studio here. Because he had one in LA. I was like, man, we need to do this here. It was like VaynerMedia, where you can come in with an LLC. And then by the time you're done, you've got a jingle, you've got stationery, you've got a website, you've got commercials, you've got all the things.
How do you handle your infrastructure, like your HVAC, your plumbing, your electric, your sewage, your garbage?
Yeah, we have our preferred vendors that we go to, because something's happening every week. It's crazy. Like right now we manage about 500 doors and we own about 288 of those. And so like something is always happening, like boiler leaking and flooding or roof issues. And so we have to have our trusted people. We've got we did this building with, I don't want to call it that level of expertise, but like, independent groups, like I almost want to say handyman, but people who can just do everything. I can do flooring, they can do, we call that drywall and a little bit of, plumbing and electrical, a little bit dangerous in some of those areas. And then for the big level services, we needed to hire, companies like a Beacon Plumbing or something, Southwest Plumbing, or commercial services. And commercial, the only difference I think with commercial, like the furniture is way heavier, it's supposed to last way longer. It's very like the stuff that you get for your home is flimsy. Even the microwaves, like pull it too hard, you might pull the handle off or the whole door. The stuff that you buy for commercial that other people are using is more heavy duty. And I realize that because the wear and tear on stuff from people that don't own and they just are using your stuff is just heavy. It's really heavy. So yeah, we do have to have those groups, and it's not just one, it's a big list of window people, if a window breaks, or plumbing, if there's a plumbing issue. And if it's a big issue, then sometimes we have to bid it out. If it's a small issue, then we just have our people. This is the commercial lifestyle. Just kidding. I thought that's what it's gonna be like.
That's how you came here today.
That's how I project. But no, it's nothing like, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street or anything like that. It's way more human. It's way more community, based, building relationships with city, building relationships with, organizations in the neighborhood, like Belltown Chamber of Commerce, this Chamber of Commerce, that, and the design review boards, and like it's so much relationship building. And they're just people like us. I think the coolest thing about the lifestyle of it all is that commercial real estate is business to business. So we do business during business hours. You try to set up a tour on a Saturday, you won't even get an answer. You just won't. It just, that is, like, residential was, you know, people, they start work when, you know, they start your work when they're off the clock, right?
Exactly.
So you gotta fill your days with, you know, working on the business and then working in the business,
Right.
maybe after.
Right.
Or, you know, build your life in those hours, because you have way more time during the day. But it eats up your weekends, and it really regulated my whole life and my lifestyle when I jumped into commercial real estate and stopped taking residential deals, because you know, it was a 9 to 5 thing, and I could still grind until late night, work on a presentation overnight, but nobody's calling me for new things. You know, can you send me some info on this? It's not happening. So that is one of the great benefits. The money is, it's the same. Like I wouldn't say it's not exactly the same, but like you can make millions in residential real estate, you can make millions in commercial real estate. It's the same. So one is not better financially, I don't think, than the other. To handle 400 clients in a year, I mean, you have to have a team. Now your whole operation. You probably look like an office like this if you're doing that many transactions, right? You might have a team of like 10 people to do that many transactions. Likely, I'm sure there's somebody who's figured out how to AI all. But yeah, so it's not too different. It's not too different financially, but being a real estate professional, you could take advantage of that and not leave money on the table. Sometimes it's better to refer stuff. And even in commercial real estate, they look at each other a certain way. It's just the nature of sales. It's like you're praising everything. Like I never get compliments on certain things that I have on until I walk into a car dealership. And then, oh man, nice, what you got there? But that just doesn't happen everywhere. Their eyes are programmed to see those things. Okay, shoes, belt. All right, maybe he can afford this Ford F-150, you know, that we need to sell. So in commercial, the apartment brokers are apartment brokers. The industrial brokers are industrial brokers. And they don't really cross over. And so if a industrial guy has a apartment client, they may just refer it over, likely, like I would estimate it's like 50-50 chance they're gonna just refer it to the apartment group in their brokerage. Now here that we don't have that culture. You know, we don't have that culture, so there's nothing stopping you. Or there's no outside peer pressure saying that you can't handle the business opportunity listing. It's just more so, you know, your oversight and working with the oversight here within the office on how to handle this transaction and make sure we don't get sued, right? But for the most part, within the commercial real estate space, everyone kind of focuses on their property type. And I'll talk about the property types just so you guys get a good understanding of that. Some of our buildings, and again, relationships, this is what it actually looks like. Very artsy. We're in a lot of boxes. And one of the ways to beautify a box is through art, right? Not just furniture, but art. So here's the property type. So there's office, retail, industrial, multifamily, hotels, and mixed use. And mixed use could be a mix of any of these. Could be a resort with this is almost mixed use. It's office, but there is a little bit of retail, so a little mixed use. But this is a big, huge project. It's very, very nice office park here. But mixed use could be like you've got the Westin in downtown Bellevue that has the condos, the hotel, and then retail at the base. That's more, you know, of a better description of mixed use. Multifamily, but this is, you know, this is not a property type that people specialize in. They specialize over here, and then if it's got some office and some retail, they may pull some expertise from the office and retail division to like help with this. So if you get a listing and we need this, imagine getting the Westin, but getting the whole Westin. And not just, oh, you're gonna be the person who sells our condos. No, you manage the whole project. Now you manage the sales and marketing of the whole project. So you would manage the sales. You would find a great residential sales broker to sell the condos, and then you would list the retail, and then potentially, you know, find partners for hospitality. But yeah, that's an advantage that you guys have, and an advantage that you have in investing is points. You have 3 points when you buy a deal, sometimes 6, sometimes more, right? So every time you check a box on the good faith estimate, you see everybody getting paid. There's so many people getting paid on every single deal. You creating points in the deal for yourself. So if someone else is coming in on a flip house, but you were the broker and you're getting a commission back, you're already paying 3% less than the next person. So you're stepping on the court with an advantage already. And then if you have a contact, that could get you a discount on flooring. And then if you have your brother-in-law, who's a general contractor, you know, as you build these things, you have this team, you're gonna pick up points, so you have an advantage. That person has to pay less than you because you have bigger margins. And then also that stake that you have in the opportunity, which could be your commission and, you know, some contacts and some vision, that could create your investment in the deal. Client types, there's tenants. That's pretty self-explanatory. Could be a Cordova, could be a John F. Scott, could be Microsoft. An owner user, which would be the tenant that is leasing to themselves. So they buy the building to use themselves, like a car dealership owning the building, or McDonald's Incorporated owning the building, and then the franchise in there. And then there's investor developer. And how we get paid. So my business partner, Sam, was our general contractor, and then Pete is a designer. So people would hand me leases all the time because they didn't know how they were gonna get paid. If you know you sell a $10 million building, you know there's a commission percentage on that, but they didn't understand leasing. And so they would just say, hey, it's a lease. And they would think like residential lease, that's probably one payment. It's not a lot of money, just kick it over there, right? Or half of one payment. But the way it works is you get the commission rate on the total value of the contract. So take all the payments times the amount of months that the lease is, and then you get paid on that number as volume. So let's say it's 10K a month is the lease times 10 years, that's 120 months. That's how it works. And then you have the annual increases built in, you calculate that all the way out. And then that is the commission that you bill for. The leases can happen very quick, but then they can also take a while. And that's because there's like maybe some build out involved. And then commercial real estate companies are very slow to react. Yeah, we'll get it to you by Friday. Residential is like, no, I need that by 5 p.m. because of this reason. But to negotiate a LOI, I might send it to a group in Denver, Colorado, and there might be a big group like Avalon Properties or something, right? And it may take them a week to respond because they got their attorneys involved, and you're working with a big company who has oversight, and that's got to make it up and then make it down to the salesperson coming back to me. So sometimes that's like a month to get to a LOI. And then there's this build out that has to occur. And you kind of have to know what the build out is going to be like. So you have to prep your client. And sometimes they're already prepped. Sometimes they're like, hey, here's the design. Find us something that this would be the ideal Qdoba or the ideal subway or whatever, right? And so they send you that, then you kind of have your marching orders. But if they don't have the design, they're more on the entrepreneurial and they have the dream and they want to do it, and sometimes people are dreaming bigger than their budget, and it gets real once you've signed an LOI, and now you're getting your bids to build out the space. So that takes time to massage that, and then finally lock in on the total cost of the build out. And then once you know the cost, you might need to negotiate some tenant improvement budget from the landlord. They're like, well, we're going to do all this. And right now the space is just bare, just walls and concrete right now. So we're going to improve the space. We want you to kick in. And it's kind of customary. It's customary for a landlord to kick in tenant improvements. It's just, they want to see what your budget is, so they know that, like, oh, what they're doing. It's the list of things being done. Yes, sir.
When you purchase something,
Mhm.
is there anything like a reserve study where an external organization has gone in and evaluated all of your infrastructure and your capital assets that are inherent to a project?
Absolutely. At the highest levels, they do that. But for the most part, I haven't had to run into that. I haven't. They don't really. They might have some data providers that give them, these types of studies at an overview level, kind of like pulling a property report. You're like, okay, and you have demographics on the property report. You're like, okay, kind of know it, but not an invasive type of thing. However, they will ask for like your profit and loss or your proof of funds or things like this, right? Your concept, do you have a one pager? Do you have a one sheet? So when I was working with tenants, I would try to answer all the questions up front and provide a lot about the potential success or the success of the tenant and the ideas for their build out in a one sheet. I would build a one sheet and it would be like a client profile. And I would send that over along with, and maybe press releases and things like that. I would send that over to present the client in the best light, because really what you're selling to them is this tenant is going to be here and they're going to pay the rent for a long, long time. And they're good and they're going to make your business look good or your building look good. And it's going to attract other tenants. So like you could be paying 25% more or 50% more than the next competitor. But if the next competitor is Starbucks, your little sandwich shop it's gonna have a tough time competing with Starbucks. Right, because they're so rock solid, they have AAA rated credit, they sign 75-year leases sometimes. So like that is, that's a thing, which is why I would build a tenant profile to make sure that we got chosen. Because of the length of time it takes to negotiate some of these things, we don't want them to jump ship when they find another tenant. We want them to know that this is solid all the way.
Question, so if you're working with someone looking like a mom and pop versus someone who does have a bigger, something to build out and show the letter like they're solid, how do you shop for lenders, for the dreamers, for the people who are trying to
Mhm.
grow, establish their names?
That's a really good question. I'm so glad you asked that because I probably would have forgot to mention that, but there's programs out there for small business, and SBA is a good one. It's a big one, the biggest, but then there's offshoots of that. There's this Women and Minority Owned Business Program. It's WAMB. You guys should look that up for sure. Just keep that in as a resource, because you guys are all going to be owning and running businesses, and investing in businesses. But like, it gives you, if as long as you're like 50% owned women or a minority on your commercial purchase, you basically get 2% back of your interest rate every year. So it's kind of like taking that 7% rate and shaving it to a 5. So it helps your building cash flow. And that is for properties that are, I think you have to be 50 to 51% of the building. So if your business is a hotel, it's an all-in-one thing, right? So we have 100%. So we could get that on our buildings, which we haven't, but we could. And then there's lenders that work with that. It's kind of like House Key or Washington Housing Finance Commission. They've got House Key. They've got the tax credit thing too. And I think it's actually Washington. It's the Finance Commission that has the WAM program. You'll find it right away if you just women and minority owned businesses. So that gives you, and I've done several deals like that for chiropractors and another 2 doctors. They use that program, so I was exposed to it. The U.S. Bank works with that program. So U.S. Bank is a good bank. They don't advertise it, they don't tell you about it, but if you go to that website, it explains all these things that I've told you, and then it also lists all the banks that work with this program and totally understand it. You do need a bank that can underwrite that way, because they'll underwrite with the 2% discount. And when rates were at 4, your rate could have been at 2 on a commercial building. That's crazy, pretty crazy. What's the name? I'm sorry. It's WAMB, Women and Minority Owned Businesses. I would just Google that and then put Washington at the end, and then it'll bring you right to that page. Yeah, so to go back to the leasing, that's how leasing commissions work. So it can be very profitable. And leases can be very fast. I did a lease on Main Street in Bellevue for a jewelry store, and the place was pretty nice and it's retail. So really everything is like a fixture, but not a build out, and space worked. And we saw it on a Saturday because this building was owned by a local regular, it was just cool. He was like, "Hey, you want to come tomorrow?" And he was the person who listed it. So he answered the phone. I was talking to the owner, and we had like the lease signed by like Wednesday, we saw it on a Saturday, signed by Wednesday. And then he had a check. I didn't even have to invoice him. Our brokerage didn't, and just had a check for, my brokerage, and it was so fast. So deals can happen that fast, but usually for something that needs an extensive build out, it could take some time. Even an office like this is going to need a build out. If someone else comes in here and, they have different ideas. Oh, this is going to be the bullpen. We need this to, then there's added costs for them as well. So now investors, and it'll lead to developers. Core is like low risk. This is some of the strategies that investors invest with. Core would be like the Columbia Tower, you know, stable, occupied, or a building leased by Amazon. It's just a blue chip deal that is gonna have national recognition or appeal from the big investors that are like insurance companies or REITs, hedge funds, private equity companies. It's just a whole level that only buys the premium stuff. And it's low risk, like the Teachers Pension Fund of Washington or Tennessee, or, you know, they buy those types of deals. Insurance companies, they buy the core deals. And then there's Core Plus, which is generally low to moderate. That would be like in the core, but maybe a little bit of older building. Like there's like class A, B, and C, and then D. So like A is the core. A is like the best. Sometimes you might buy in the location that's an A, but then have a B level building. You know, a little older is not going to attract the same rates as a core building, the same tenants as a core building. But it's Core Plus because what you could do is you could lift the profile of the building by doing upgrades and putting technology in there and things that make the building refreshed and then compete now with an A building. And then there's value add, which that was a little bit of value add, but there's this value add where you're buying C properties or B properties and doing a much bigger lift to either reposition the property into something else or like taking office building and then converting it into residential.
Your Wallingford.
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
that
that's
Wallingford
value
would
add.
be a value add, yeah.
Mhm, absolutely. And so that's more involved, but much higher returns. And then there's development. And there's a life of a building. And there's like day zero, which is raw land. And then there's fully stabilized, which is, you can call it core. But a new building that's fully leased up and marketable to the world. And so getting from raw land to here, like so much time, that so much can happen. You could have a recession or two, or a COVID-19 hit and all of that. So it creates the highest risk, but also the highest returns. And the thing about development is, regardless of where you're at, well, not regardless, as long as you kicked the ball forward and created some value, you brought some vision to the land, you brought some studies, you can jump off once you get permitting or some level of milestone that kicks the ball forward and makes the land not as raw anymore. It's kind of cooked. It's there's a vision casted, and so now someone else with less vision than the developer can come in and buy that. There's still a lot of risk there because the building hasn't been built, but once they've got permits, you're entitled. They're called entitlements because you're entitled to build the thing that you've gotten permitted, right? So once you have it there to like it's fully built, so now we don't have to finance something that is up high in the sky. Now we can finance something that's usable, less risk. But then once the tenant's in there, even less. So that's why developers are like, it's a lot of glory. A lot of glory when you're right. And when you time it, timing is on your side. But, I know people that we all were like, whoa, look up to them because they had like all these projects. They might have 5 right now. And I'm thinking to myself, putting myself in their shoes, wow, they have to fill 1,000 units and build these 5 buildings in this environment, and they had the vision in the 4% environment. So now getting into a 7% or 6% environment, those rates have to come up and the rental rates need to come up. They need to adjust to that. But when you're already in the airplane, it's hard to like put on a new wing, right? Or build a new bathroom or bigger seating when you're in the air. So they kind of have to execute that But then when they go to refinance into the permanent loan, well, it might not be worth, well, it's not even about the value, it's just the interest rates. It's not reaching the interest rate that, it's not reaching that hurdle. It can't clear that and provide cash flow. If you guys have ever heard DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, the income just can't cover the debt payment. So there's a lot of folks that are in that situation, that are developers, like right now, but if they can hold on, or if there's a way for them to like outlast this period that we're in, they can win. And Dax had a great story. He's one of my like mentors, friends, and he had this building Moda in like 2007. He built like 200 condos or something in Belltown, and the market shifted, changed, and I think they had sold it all out, reserved, similar thing to me, but I was, a broker. And 07, 08 happens, and he had the idea to, okay, let's give them back their deposits and let's convert it into an apartment. He converted it into an apartment and then was able to sell it to like Avalon Properties, like a big apartment group. And that was pretty awesome. I got a lot of respect for that move right there, because it's hard to recover. Like there's certain groups that just couldn't recover, and there's a lot of strategic foreclosures going on, just business moves that like, okay, we just can't do this one. This one was dreamed and imagined in time that's different from right now. So there's just a lot of things going on with the industry. And sales system. This was my sales system, but I pulled it from what's customary and what's innovative and what's working. So first, the private offering, that's kind of, and I'll explain this so you don't have to read it, but private offering is like, it's kind of a pocket listing. It's kind of, I don't know if that's legal, but it's like you hear about a deal and the owner's like, hey, I'll sell, but like, I'll pay you a commission, but I'm not gonna sign a listing with you. Everything's for sale, right? So now you build a little flyer out for this deal, and it's like off market, but owner will sell. You tell a little story and you're putting information out there to your database of buyers. And that's what I had. I had data that I pulled from multiple sources and built my own buyers list of everyone that did a transaction in certain like spaces in certain markets and locations. So I looked for every apartment buyer who bought anything in Washington in the last 5 years. And then I had lists of all their, like, how much volume they purchased, how many doors they owned, like all the key executives to talk to. So let's say it was like an apartment, then I would look for the acquisitions directors in that company. And I've spent time on this list too. So I got multiple data sources, one like CoStar, some public records, some other like subscription services that I pulled, some just like being a private detective and just like going on their website and then like searching acquisitions director, go to the team page and then finding those people. And so then we built out this thing, and then I was able to value my database. Like we have, based on what I see with your property, it's an apartment, blah, blah, blah. We have 427 buyers in our database that have acquired over $18 billion in properties in the last 5 years. And like, we'll do this private offering through this window, and so like I closed market, it's a whole closed loop. We don't have to go anywhere else except direct to the buyers. And that is like, it's more entrepreneurial. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of like big hitters in commercial real estate investment because of that. But the difference in the phone calls is so vast. They all picked up my call. Nobody ever hung up on me. We're doing business. What do you mean? We buy properties. You have a property? Okay. It's business to business contact. And then those people that I was talking to, a lot of the times they worked there. They weren't like the person writing the check. So they wanted the win themselves. But they're not as entrepreneurial as we are. We're brokers, right? They're getting a salary and they may get a bonus if that deal works out, or they may even get a piece of the deal as well. There's situations like that too. So with acquisitions directors, I'm just like, find as many as I could. And then I build the database, and that was our closed loop system for private offerings off market. And then if that didn't work out, we had tons of data. These people said yes, these people said yes, but then, you know, they bought something else and no, not buying right now, whatever. And now we were able to, equipped with that information, say, hey, look, the price should probably be more like X instead of where it is right now. And then we do a call for offers. Sometimes that's priced, sometimes that's unpriced. But at that point, it's a listing. Now you got the listing because they saw what you did, you got all the data, you got the information, you showed them your expertise. And then now you're taking it and you're putting it on the market, sometimes unpriced. And you're leveraging maybe a platform like RCM or auction.com, which is 10X. 10X, and they are basically just the database that you already have, but they operate at a different level and they have insights that you can see, and they have a community that is very actively looking at the emails that come in from like RCM or 10X. And so what you would do is you would put it out there unpriced. You would allow people to sign up for it and pre-qualify themselves, which is like low level. It's just like, okay, who do you work for? Are you the buyer or are you a broker? And then sign this digital NDA, click, and then now you get access to this data room. And it's got all of the like profit and loss statements, rent rolls, whatever you need to see. Maybe they put plans in there and all kind of stuff in there to help you evaluate the deal. And then they'll say offers due by a certain date. So it gives everybody time to process what's being offered. And then they'll have like 3 tours or 1 tour on this date or these dates if you guys want to come and see, and people might fly out to see it. And then you get you collect your offers, and then you might even do another round. We picked our highest and best 3. You guys want to polish up your offer, and you know, and we're going to take the next offer out of the 3. And that's a call for offers scenario, which is it's really cool. It's a really cool way to do real estate, and it's very professional. It's a lot less social media heavy and more direct. You can talk about the wins and the trophies on social media after it's done, but during that process, it's usually a lot more, you know, on the level. Yeah. And then public offering is just listed on the MLS. And sometimes this is both. Usually this is both. So it's listed on the MLS, but it might be zeroed out in pricing, or there is a price and it's still like offer review date on this date. Public offering is without the call for offers. That's just listed on the open market. You can do that with, you know, public offerings is really good for tenancy because you really need to get a lot of exposure, lots of exposure. Multifamily, you kind of do both because that market is very active. Office, retail, all of the like core plus deals tend to be like unpriced. They tend to be in that call for offers space. Anything above $20 million is like call for offers. Yeah. Partnerships. And again, you know, I told you that like all the deals, there's someone else getting paid. Yeah.
Wondering about that when you were talking about,
Oh, yeah.
housing, so,
Yep.
yeah, I'm.
Yeah, so we love our partners, you know, and
Yeah.
it's part of it. you. It's my business to know what their dreams and their hopes are. I mean, like, if I had a partner that was the Seattle Supersonics, I'd be looking for stadiums right now. I'd figure it out, you know? But you just have to have the purpose first. So like, they have a lot of purpose. And so we take their dreams and then we imagine the buildings that would work for them. And we try to get great deals, and the buildings that will work for them are usually 100% vacant, which we can get good deals on, and need a lot of renovation and customization. So, you know, we become like a perfect developer partner for these organizations that we work with. This is a little old. We've got probably doubled in partnerships, but I just took a screenshot from our website. The same thing with real estate brokerage. Like, you got I had so many different brokers that I worked with, and I gave them, we had so much trust. Trust speeds everything up. Because if you don't have trust and reputation, then everyone's like, what? Do you really have the deal? Do you really have how am I gonna get paid on this? You know, or like how, you know, there's so many questions that it creates resistance. But once you have this trusted network, the information can flow way more freely. I could, in a text to my friend Scott Rockland, just, hey, I got another one here. Here's the address, or here's the parcel number. I could give him all the details because I trusted Scott. And he was at a whole nother brokerage, Berkshire Hathaway at the time. And, you know, just, but great guy. And then I had other commercial brokers that, you know, they knew what I did. I would always come up with inventory and opportunities in Bellevue and in Seattle and certain types. And so we just call each other, hey, what do you got? What do you got? And that information is critical, and it really helps you do deals, because I treated, when Scott had a client and his client was looking for land in downtown Bellevue, like, I treated that like that was a client, like that was actual, like, we're gonna do this deal. I'm in downtown Bellevue every day, you know, you're in East Bellevue. So like, I get it. And I tracked all the sites and XYZ. And so like those relationships are critical. It takes a village to do deals sometimes. And sometimes it's me and Scott on one side and we're working with other brokers, you know, but that's fine, because we won enough times to where, you know, a reduced commission it's a win, you know, and we've worked on deals that had big commissions that didn't come together, you know, all the time. I tried to sell a home builder to another home builder and all their assets. Yeah. And that was like $100 and something million deal. This is probably like 15 years ago. And I already knew how I was going to spend the money. I was like, they're going to pay off these deals. Everything's going to change. You get a raise, you get a raise, you get a raise. And you know, the deal ends up not coming together. The seller went to Cabo with his family and looked around, and his name was the name of the builder. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I think we're just going to keep it in the family. Yeah, my heart sunk. I was frozen for like 20 seconds because I had to go tell my partner. So yeah, no, it was tough. It was tough, but that, you know, we were getting a huge commission on that one, you know, and so, but it adds up. It builds over time. And that client that we were representing in that acquisition remained our client for the next like 10 years, you know. And what I did was, here I had the private offerings and the information, like we don't even need to list it, because I had 10 buyers that were rock solid in multifamily, in development, in townhomes, and in residential detached single family housing. Like my top people, that took experience and relationship to build that. But that, I think, that is the secret sauce, because once you have that trust built up with them, they're like, don't do it pretty, Lloyd. Just send me the parcel number. I'm a lame guy. Just send me the parcel number. I'll figure it out in like 10 minutes. It takes you, I don't know how long it takes you to make this fly, you know? So we had those trusted relationships, and by the time we got to 10, we knew if this deal was gonna happen or not. We knew if it was worth going here and here and there, or this seller wasn't really realistic. And so, having your private client, because the cool thing about investors, is they're perpetual buyers of real estate.
Right.
So there's certain clients that I did like 8 deals with. And then we were so close, you know, I met the family and like he was like, when he was going through some things, I was managing his assets. I was like an asset manager, just a broker, but like an asset manager, arranging financing, like give me all your docs, I got the docs, and then getting loans for his real estate. So having that close relationship with your clients, the speed of trust, it speeds everything up and you get to know quicker. You get to hear the excitement if they're excited. There's not these walls up where they're like decent, you know, because they want to save room to trash the deal so they can, you know, motivate you to get a better deal.
Right.
But yeah, so building out like your top 10 lists and building relationship with them and finding out what their criteria is, and then create that alignment where all these people will build townhomes in Capitol Hill and surrounding, right? So you know that. Why prospect for hotels? Like you got 10 right here, they're all aligned. One, you know, if you get one that makes sense, somebody's gonna buy it and build it. So that alignment, there's some power in that. And that also helps shape, you know, your business and your workflows and your process. Because even in these property types, there's little nuances that are different. There's different terminology and language. And I think that's kind of created to make people look fancy and create separation. But yeah, you don't need a high school, oh wait, maybe you do to get a real estate license, right? Okay, so you need something, but it's the same requirements. Yeah. Any more questions? Any questions?
Are you done?
I could be.
Right, it's like, are you done before I get started?
Yes.
So for me, who knows nothing, I
Mhm.
mean, nothing about commercial. I guess I need it to be dumbed down a little bit more
Mhm.
in the sense of, you know, if I do realize commercial is not found on the regular MLS, correct? So where are we going to look for commercial? Like if we
Great
have
question.
a seller, a buyer who's
Mhm.
looking for something, where are we looking for
Yeah.
potential commercial buildings?
So some commercial shows up on the MLS, but
Mhm.
that is the decision of the listing agent purely.
Okay,
Like, there's a lot of multifamily that shows up on the Northwest MLS. There's business opportunities, crazy, on the MLS, probably more active. But then there's also the commercial MLS .com, commercialmls.com, which is SEBA, Commercial Brokers Association. And they are the go-to. They're the ground zero for commercial real estate listings, brokerage. But then there's other sites. Because what we're talking about is regional. So that's the difference between somebody looking at the Northwest MLS, whatever their front-facing site is that the general public can look at, and then there's the Zillow. So Zillow, like, has everything, pulls everything. And there's sites out there like LoopNet and CoStar and Crexy that has listings as well. Sometimes there's a variation, there's a difference, like, oh, this Crexy has like 3 listings that SEBA doesn't. And then, you know, vice versa. SEBA might have 80 more listings that Crexy doesn't, you know, because SEBA is gonna be like your best bet, catch all. That's the first place you go. And then I would supplement with the other sites. CoStar is very expensive.
CoStar.
Yeah, you gotta be serious about their business. It's like $5.50 a month for just one license.
Seba's like $50 a month.
Yes,
$6.
and that's where you're gonna have all your contracts. That's where you're gonna have all, just like the MLS, you got your transaction desk that have the similar
And
thing there.
classes and
Mhm.
everything.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
You know, what
Like-
contracts are we using or,
Yep.
and we can use our real estate license to work with those contracts.
Yes. And in the Northwest MLS, they have a partnership agreement. They work together. They're like brother and sister, right? And so the SEBA contracts are, some of them are in the Northwest MLS.
Okay.
Like the
They all
main
have
ones.
classes to go on.
Mhm.
Seba does.
Okay.
I mean, you don't want to use a contract you don't know how to use.
Right.
Right? You're still uphold, you're upheld to the law, so like you want to know what you're doing, but if you're serious about going, like,
It's cheaper too. It's cheaper than, it's just relatively affordable. And it's not very demanding, I don't even think there's like arbitration, and all this other, like the Northwest MLS, the government.
Yes.
Yes, basically a Department of Licensing. So yeah, that would be your best bet. Commercialmls.com. Any more questions?
Of course.
Yes, please. You help me.
Well, because, I mean, I guess you guys are all commercial people, but I am not, so for me, it's like, okay, so I have a person who is looking to. You have the person who's looking for the commercial building, so we got that, SEBA is a great place to go. Also take classes to learn about it, but then. I just remember a long time ago, somebody had asked me about a dance studio and start talking terms
Mhm.
about price per square footage, and it was called something totally different.
Mhm.
And so where do you go to learn that so you can sound intelligent?
Yes.
Well-
Investopedia. I
Did that again?
Investopedia. I learned a lot from Investopedia. So even the formulas, like how to calculate a cap rate, how to, all those things are generally on Investopedia. What is IRR? How to calculate that? And it'll break down the formula for you and like over explain it. It's like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, all the leasing terms,
Mhm.
they're there. If you just download a list or just copy and put everything into like a OneNote or a note document,
Mhm.
and just pull that over. It's like there was so much I didn't know and I couldn't speak the language. And again, they're very discerning on like, okay, how much does this person know based on the words that you drop, or the confidence that you have. And it's really the words and the confidence, there's just like general understanding that creates the trust, that creates the speed of like, not like, let me see the proof of funds. Or let me see your bill blind, or send me an email about what they want to do first. There's a lot of that, because gatekeeping. You just kind of have to, because there is no lock boxes. You have to call the agent and be like, hey, we got a tour, can the client do that on Thursday? And you're like calling on a Tuesday, because there's a lot of coordination going on. And they're like, yeah, and the tours are like 20 minutes. And so you go in there and they're there, they have to open the door for you and show you, or sometimes if it's trusted relationship, you've worked with them before, you just drive by their office and pick up the key and then go show it on your own.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that works. And just, understand that you're gonna have to call every agent, but there's not like a lot of inventory. It's not like, if you had to do that in residential, you'd probably be calling hundreds of people just to set up tours. But in commercial, it's more of like, we're gonna go see these 5 buildings. This is everything on the market. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Stop trying to get up. So with the MLS, now we have to have that BBSA. Do we need to have anything like that in?
Hire broker service agreement?
Oh, see, there's a
See, there's
language.
There's a language.
Is there something that we should have with commercial?
So I retired before that came into place,
Mhm.
so I don't know.
This might just be to get with Tony.
Tony knows a lot.
This is a commercial class, is it not?
It is.
Tony teaches
Yes.
commercial too.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Thank you.
100%.
You still
Yeah.
need it.
You still need it. Okay, thank you.
I think it's good practice too. It's a talking point.
Mhm.
You can spin anything, into a positive thing. Turn it all into like, this is how we're gonna help you and service you.
Mhm.
I do think though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of commercial people still to this day are they're doing the connections, they're having the conversations, they're showing the property, they're doing all this stuff, and some of them are maybe signing it at the time of right before either doing the letter of intent or even making the actual offer.
Yeah,
It's a little different than I think with residential because we can't do anything
yeah.
without one signed first. And true.
Yeah, well, and I will say this, if it's something that there's a big learning curve on,
Mhm.
I'll give you a perfect example. There's a deal I'm working on with Lloyd with those. Some of it is way beyond my scope.
Mhm.
I brought him in at five. That's partner up like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like it was something way out of my like normal scope that I know. And I do know it, but I don't know that he does, so I was like, okay, help me out.
Yvonne, Yvonne, one of my listings, we're marketing this kind of residential and commercial, so Tony's handling the commercial side.
Partnering up.
And then you learn and pick it up and then it's like.
This is a great class.
Oh, thank
Like
you.
I could sit here for another hour. Are you gonna come back again? That's my question.
I'm here to help. I'm a resource to the industry. Again, I love it.
Coffee lunch sometime?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I love this office. I almost signed up here back in 2010. But at the Renton one, yeah, I met with Saul. And but my business partner at the time, he was in Kirkland, and so we ended up going to Kirkland.
Awesome. Well, let's give it up for Lloyd. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you spending time with us.
Yeah.
Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Anything for John L. Scott and Tony.
Thanks again, man. All right, guys, that is it for today. And I am sorry, but you know what? I don't know if this thing recorded because for
I
some
hope it
reason.
did. So let's watch this.
Wow, I was hoping
Oh,
to slide.
maybe it
I
did
know.
get it. We'll see. We'll have to